We both can't swim. He can't fish.
I can swim.
I don't like coconut. So we'll see how we go.
Don't like taro. Don't like fish. Can tolerate chop suey. Can't speak the language. This is going to be a real fun trip.
Yeah.
The Faafoi brothers.
One News understands that the 30-year-old victim of the shooting is a highly ranked member of the local mongrel mob chapter.
Or as their friends and family call them, Farty and Faafs.
Hi, it's a message for Grant. It's Kris Faafoi from TVNZ here, Grant.
G'day, mate. How was it in Nelson this weekend, buddy?
Jason's the eldest. He's loved by What Now viewers up and down the country. Little brother Chris is becoming a household name as a reporter for One News. They live together, they work hard and play hard. Mum and Dad always told them to live life to the fullest and take every opportunity that comes their way. Well, the boys are grabbing a new opportunity to head to their homeland because the Farfois are actually Tokelauan. But like a lot of New Zealand-born islanders, the boys have never been home. They reckon their time to return home is now.
As kids, Mum and Dad always used to rave on about home and stuff like that, and would sit there and go, oh, wow. But I never thought I'd ever go there, eh? Just going to be weird seeing how they react to being back home, you know?
While Jason and Kris live the high life in their new trendy flat overlooking the harbour in Wellington, their parents live in a suburb in Christchurch, still in the same house the boys grew up in. Their parents are Amosa and Matita Faafoi. They were both born and bred in Tokelau and came to New Zealand separately in the 1960s. But for one reason or another, they've never been back to Tokelau. Tokelau is a group of 3 tiny coral atolls near the equator in the middle of the Pacific. Tokelauans are actually New Zealand citizens, and Kiwi money has been used to build hospitals and schools. In the early 60s, scholarships were given to the top Tokelauan students to be educated in New Zealand. Amosa was one of the first to leave.
And at the time it was really, really nice to know that, you were selected. But as it got a bit close to the day when I had to leave home, I had second thoughts about leaving Dad. Because up till then, the furthest away I'd been would be about, 10 minutes travelled by canoe.
He was just 12 years old.
I can remember feeling a bit numb all over. And I looked back at the boat and looked at our house and looked at the boat, and it was just a great big huge feeling of helplessness, not really knowing whether I was going to see anybody else, Mum, Dad and my family members, and how long is this trip going to take, and how far is this place, New Zealand?
Back in Tokelau, the islanders were thriving and the population growing fast. Too fast, and soon little Tokelau was overrun with too many little Tokelauans. A scheme was hatched to resettle half the population in New Zealand. Mete had no idea she was being sent away until her name turned up on the resettlement list.
I was talking with a group of girls, and we knew there was a group of girls were coming over to New Zealand, and I said to them, "Who's going?" And then they were going through the names, and then my name came up, and I said, "No, I'm not going." And I said, "Your name's on the list." And I said, "Where is it?" So I just grabbed the piece of paper and have a look, and I said, "Oh my God." I got up and I ran home and looked for my dad. And we were just talking, and then he was saying, "No, my daughter, go to New Zealand, look for your future." And I said, "Okay." But
It was 1966. Meti was 16.
I can't remember saying goodbye to my mum because I keep taking off. Every time I see my mum, I take off somewhere else. And even when we had gotten When we were ready to get on the boat, I saw my mum standing there and I ran out the other side and the next minute I was on the boat.
Over the next 4 years, a quarter of the population was sent to New Zealand. Meti and her girlfriends were moved to chilly Wellington, which is where she met Amosa. They fell in love and decided to move to tropical Christchurch, where they've lived ever since, despite the fact that most of their Tokelauan friends and family in New Zealand live in Wellington.
Meti and I spent endless evenings and days and nights weighing up, do we pack up and take our 3 boys and daughter to Wellington so they can experience the Tokelauan thing? What were the positives, what were the negatives?
Why would you, a Tokelauan who hasn't been living at home for at least 2 decades, not want to live in amongst the community where all those people are?
We needed to provide an environment for our kiddies that would allow them to function both as New Zealand Tokelauans, but also appreciate and be sensitive and try and live as much as they can their Tokelauan culture with their Tokelauan people. And I think it's a balancing act that a lot of bicultural families must sometime go through and agonise about.
If you want to eat something, bring it.
What should I bring? Everything.
Although the boys shifted to Wellington, where most of the Tokelauan community live, they still aren't really in touch with their culture.
We got to live normal kind of Kiwi lifestyles, and while a lot of other Tokelauan families that came here, I guess, kind of came to New Zealand but tried to live that same lifestyle.
The island lifestyle in New Zealand.
And you can only, you got to keep the good things and assimilate with what New Zealand offers. No. And I think Mum and Dad did a pretty good job of that. But we've kind of lost out in a way. We don't know how to speak the language or anything like that, so we've got a bit to make up.
Sweet.
You won't find one Tokelauan CD in this house. You won't find any jandals or lava-lavas.
Jandals are off limits for us. I don't do jandals.
There's nothing that sticks out. We're just ordinary Kiwi boys.
We are identityless.
Yeah, because we are not white,
but
we are not Tokelauan, so it's really weird, eh?
Hi, Dad.
The boys have an older brother, Lance, who still lives in Christchurch. He can't make the trip home because of his new baby daughter, but little sister Maria, who still lives at home, can.
It'll be funny for all of us, I think, because the fact that we don't know the language is going to be a big thing. I picked up a bit when I was up in Wellington, but it's going to be hard. I don't know how well we're going to be able to communicate and how people are going to take us.
We'll be the confused ones, and Maria will be just like winging it and looking like a princess, and Mum and Dad will love her, and we'll be the ones going.
Mum and Dad will be looking at us going,
are we supposed to go pick that thing up that they just put on the floor? And we'll be the ones who can't dance.
Yeah.
Moving to New Zealand has meant a lot of changes for Meti and Amosa. Tokelau is deeply religious and church is a huge part of life. But living here, habits have changed.
Why don't we go to church anymore? There are other things in our lives, and I don't know. I won't speak on behalf of many, but for me personally, I don't need to physically go to the church in order to talk with the person I need to talk with God.
We didn't ever go to church, which I suppose is a bit of a bonus. And why we've turned out where we are now. Sinners.
Despite the boys' heathen ways, life is great here in New Zealand for the Faafois. Amosa is president of his local club and lectures in biculturalism at the local College of Education. He and Meti are immensely proud of their kids, and their first grandchild has just turned 1. The time is perfect to take the long journey home to their tiny island.
Enjoy your time here. We'll enjoy ourselves.
How small it is. You know, at home we used to think, oh, there's a huge place, but looking at it, it's just
not so huge.
Not so huge anymore.
It's a tiny wee dot in the ocean, but it's home, and I certainly am looking forward to getting back home.
True.
How close to the equator is it? See, we're useless, eh?
That's why we're going. We're going to find out.
That's right.
What do you reckon Mum's wearing?
The boys are killing time waiting for Mum and Dad to arrive from Christchurch.
A polo shirt with a vest and pants.
It'll be the first time they've all been on a plane together.
Hello, Mum. How are you?
Yeah, I just see this.
After only an hour of travelling, they still have 50 to go.
You're going home. You're going home.
Oh,
Hey, Dad.
This is the first time Meti and Amos have left New Zealand in over 35 years. After leaving Okalofa, the next stop on a long journey is beautiful Samoa, where everyone's wearing jandals and lava-lavas. Except the Farfois. Baby sister Maria left earlier, so she's waiting for them. She already loves the island lifestyle.
I love it. I want to stay.
You have to come back and finish.
The boys might take a bit longer to adjust. It's hot. They're excited though, and in just 8 hours they'll be on a boat to Tokelau. There's only one way to get anyone or anything to Tokelau, and it's from Samoa on this boat. After leaving Apia, the boat heads northeast for 500 k's until it reaches Tokelau, which is made up of 3 atolls: Whakaofo, Nukunonu, and Atafu. The Faafoi home is on Whakaofo. When Meti and Amosa were young, it was a bigger, slower boat, and only sailed 4 times a year. Nowadays, the trip's made once a week, with food, petrol, and the occasional expat on their way home.
Are they letting you back on?
Yes, we are going.
The boat may be smaller and faster, but it's still a long journey. It can take anywhere between 20 and 30 hours, depending on the weather and the load.
So when you left, did you come here or not? Or did you come to Apia or did you go somewhere else?
That's the last side of land they'll have for a while. Next stop, Tokelau. Amosa can't believe he's finally going home.
It's a very emotional trip. I needed to do this a long time ago, and now I'm going home with a wife and 3 of my 4 children. I no longer have Dad waiting for me at home, and that's sad, very, very sad.
I saw caught Dad up there just by himself and just looking out to sea, and for someone who hasn't probably done this for 36 years, it's pretty amazing. He's just kind of sitting up in the boat, looking at the ocean, going, well, that was his life for the first 16 years of his life, and to come back to it 40 years later must be pretty amazing. So there must be some strange thoughts going through his head. I don't know, Mum's just going like this.
Mum keeps coming up every now and then, just like softly says, "Oh, I can't believe I'm going home. I'm going home."
We haven't talked about it, but I think they do both know that it's a very emotional sort of trip for the 2 of us. And at this point, I think they don't really know whether they need to sort of physically close to us to give us some support, or probably thinking that support at this moment is just to be a bit away from the 2 of us for us to work it out. I'm not sure.
The time at sea stretches on and on. And as day breaks after 24 hours on the boat, there are still at least 6 to go. There are no luxury cabins on this cruise. Tokelau. It really is a mission to get there.
It's a long time. I really want to get to a point where I don't hear that engine rumbling, because all I'm looking forward to now is a shower and some silence. And it feels it sounds very New Zealand of me, but bloody hell, the bloody engine, eh? Bloody engine!
Finally, the captain gives the word. Their island, Tokelau's southernmost atoll, Whakaofo, is in sight.
Oh, that is so neat. That is so neat. Look at that.
Where?
That is our place.
Oh, that. You got your glasses?
I haven't.
No, she can see.
Oh, we've got to wait about half an hour.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Come and have a look.
I'll get out of your way.
Just there, look. Just in front of the boat. Yeah? Is that not alright?
Now it's becoming real.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't believe I'd ever come back with Mum and Dad. And whenever they used to talk to us about it. And now it's actually happening.
Oh, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I can't believe it. That stone's still there, that big rock's still there. I used to sort of go fishing there right next door to that when I was a lot younger. Oh.
Locals do the ferrying into the island as coral reef makes it impossible for the boat to get any closer. No one's sad to get off, they're too busy thinking about what lies ahead. The last time Meti and Musa were this close to home, they were nervous school kids being sent away for reasons they didn't completely understand. Back then, they had no idea it would be over 35 years before they came back.
Welcome home, Dad. Grandpa.
Hey, look at this. Look at that.
The Faafois have finally arrived in Tokelau.
Yeah, that's that.
Hey, look at these flowers. I didn't have flowers when
Oh, they did.
Did they?
Hey, look at those breadfruit trees.
It's a pretty laid-back reception. Meti and Musa aren't surprised. They know the Tokelau way. But the boys are fresh off the boat, expecting a big island welcome.
I mean, I thought it was going to be a bit more emotional when they got off the boat to actually get on the island. But no, it was pretty laid back, eh?
But there are some familiar faces, including Meti's sister-in-law, Emma, and her older brother, Nico.
Hello, Money. Hello. Oh gosh, it's so different. So different. It's so different.
Just up the path is where Musa grew up, and he makes a beeline for the deserted house.
This is where you grew up then? In this house here?
Yeah. No. Wasn't like this.
No?
No.
Sweet.
We'll come back and have a good look after.
Yeah, come on.
Meti's brother Nico and her mum have both been to New Zealand, but are now back living together in Tokelau. Meti can't wait to see her mum for the first time in 5 years, but she's nervous too. Meti's already been warned that because of her age, her mum is having trouble recognising people, even family.
But my sister wasn't here not long ago, and I asked her, did Mum remember you? And then he said, no. She said she didn't remember you. She was just sitting there, looking at her, smiling. Lấy cô ấy. Lấy cô ấy, có cái tàng đi. Cái lô bục quá vậy. Cái mà đấy không, mắm. Oh my gosh, you remember my name.
Okay, let's have a look.
Hello, hello, Mum.
There, Chris.
Big man now.
This is the island's only guest house. That's not exactly the Hilton, but the Farpoint soon settle in. Different-sized islands are dotted around the entire coral reef, and the islanders could have settled on any of them. But instead, they have always all lived on the smallest island of all, Fale. When Meti and Musa lived here as kids, they lived in old-style one-room houses with little or no furniture and thatched roofs. Nowadays, the houses are still simple, but they're furnished and they have tin roofs.
Are these old houses as well, or people living in them?
Half of this place don't have people in it.
Amosa used to travel between the islands on wooden canoes, but modern technology is finally catching up with Tokelau.
I see a TV, mate.
I don't know what I got. Hold on. It might have a DVD player.
I can see it off.
I've got a video.
Videos.
Yeah, I can see a DVD player. Can you see it?
It's not a DVD player.
We've got 2 videos. Everything's so cramped and, I don't know, seems a bit toffee nosey, but to say a little bit kind of run down and things like that, but they must be happy with the way things are. There's no grumpy people around here. They all got smiles on their faces and just kids walking around playing a game with a bit of dirt and a stone, so.
There's a lot of excitement about the Faafoi's visit. New faces are always welcome in Tokelau. The kids are buzzing and Jason's in his element.
Can you do it again? So you got to kick it from there to there, then from there to there, all the way around. You can't go from there to there.
No.
So what you were trying to do...
What he does is he brings in the kids and then uses them as slaves for the rest of the trip. So it's not a bad idea. But I don't like kids. I'm the Grinch.